Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one!
Oladipo!
Another one!
Huge hole. He's at the 30. He's going to go. 10, 5, touchdown. Jonathan Taylor.
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and he hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you here on this, what is it, the 16th day of January now? 17th. 17th? Man. 17th day of January. Appreciate everybody joining us. Dustin, Shooty with us as always on the program today. Looking forward to talking to Mike DeCourcy from Big Ten Network, as well as the Sporting News, Chronic Hoosier as well. Lots to talk about. Purdue escapes with another big win in the Big Ten last night, this time at Michigan State. Jim Harbaugh out of the running for the Colts. Pacers lose their fourth straight. And I think I could have kicked a point after kick last night at the Cowboys Tampa Bay game last night. I've never seen anything. The was it Mayor? I forget his first name, but
Brett
misses four.
Yeah, he missed four in a row. That was wild. I don't know if I've seen that in an NFL game before.
I don't know that it's happened in an NFL game before.
It may not have. There were plenty of tweets about it being some sort of record. So I don't know if that, but I didn't do any research into it. I don't know if it was a playoff record. I don't know if it was an NFL record. But I don't know. Did you watch the Manning cast last night?
Yeah, well, of course.
That's a dumb question. My bad. But when Peyton went off after the third one and was like, has a kicker ever been cut at halftime?
He's like, why are we kicking it? Why are we kicking it?
It was so good.
But it wasn't true. It was a good question. Why were they kicking it?
Right. Well, it ended up not affecting them.
Yes.
So that's good. And then I think it was good for him to make a kick in that game because they're obviously going to have to play next week. They play San Francisco.
You think it was good?
I know it was good. I know it was good because he wants that confidence.
I still want to know what the conversation is this morning because we've seen kickers cut day after games for things. For missing a single kick.
Right. I don't think that's going to happen.
I'm not suggesting that's going to happen, but missing in the playoffs, missing 4 PATs in the playoffs, that's not good. Especially you get up against a team that's a little bit more formidable than Tampa Bay was. Tampa Bay couldn't do jack squat last night.
Well, I hope for his sake that it was like a basketball player making a free throw, like having an off shooting night and finally making a free throw, and then you're just like, okay, I finally got it to go through. Hopefully that carries over because man, while it was funny and everybody was mocking the guy, I also felt awful for him because it's not quite as severe as being a pitcher at like Yankee Stadium. But my goodness, I can't imagine the headspace you're in at that point.
Got the yips, baby.
I know.
The yips.
It's like Greg Norman at the Masters.
I've never seen anything like it. That was wild. Crazy. Jim Harbaugh out of the running apparently for becoming the coach of the Colts or any place else, as he may release a statement that he is staying in Ann Arbor. Sean Payton also, I don't think I think he's out of the picture for the Colts. C.J. Stroud is not, as he enters the draft from Ohio State. Yep. So that's a name to keep an eye on. Pacers have lost their 4th straight. And Damon Jackson makes it official. He's coming to Indiana. Indiana, Tom Allen, they're doing a good job. And I mean, I've got to give them some credit, man. I talked about this yesterday, but they've been hitting the portal. They're bringing guys in.
Yep.
I thought that would be, and it is, I'm sure, a tough job, but they're getting it done. So, hey.
Well, remember what we saw from Mel Tucker in Michigan State from 2020 to 2021. They went from, I don't remember what they finished, 2-5 maybe in 2020 in that COVID year. And then they win 10, 11 games the next season and were competitive, beat Michigan. They had a chance to win. They had a chance to win the Big Ten East late in the season. I'm not suggesting Indiana can make that kind of leap, but you can get back on track in a big hurry if you get some big-time names from the transfer portal. And so obviously the fact that Tom Allen's out recruiting the portal, the fact that he's made some staff changes, I think there's reason for optimism for Indiana moving forward on the football side. And like you said, after 2 straight seasons of not playing well and kind of being at the bottom of the Big Ten, it can be hard to recruit. But having that transfer portal makes a world of difference. So it's going to be interesting. We'll see. What I'm interested in, Jim, is if Tom Allen is going to be as secretive with spring practice and then fall camp as he was this past season, because it really only helped him 1 game. And that was
I don't think so.
Illinois.
I didn't think about that, but I don't think so. Before I forget, for those of you listening or watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe, please. We'd appreciate that. And don't forget about our fine people around the state listening, whether you're on the Ref 97.7, WREF, ESPN in Evansville, always the right call, WBRO 89.1 in Marengo, and soon to be WJOB in the region, the voice of the region, and up in Chicago. So looking forward to joining that crew and expanding our audience even more so. So those of you that are up in the region, you'll be able to find us on radio soon up there, beginning, I think, in about a week. So looking forward to that. And, of course, don't forget, we're brought to you by our good friends from Andy Moore Honda. Go to andymorehonda.com for the best in new and used vehicles. And, of course, Endeavor Hospitality, Swell Club, great places like Southern Stone, where tonight you can find Don Fisher and Mike Woodson at 7:05 for Inside Indiana Basketball. And before that, Terry Morin for Inside Indiana Women's Basketball. So she'll be along there as well. So I'll be out there checking that out. Looking forward to that. That's at Southern Stone Restaurant. And, of course, don't forget great places like BB's, where you get the best in-house made products, meats, bakery items. Doesn't matter what you need. Too bad, Dustin Shooty, you're not here. You can't get it.
I know.
Looks like you got your dad's, your grandpa's golf clubs behind you. It's a nice little look there, but it looks like it's Papaw, like there could be some persimmon headwoods in there.
There are not, but they are old clubs. I do need new golf clubs. I'm just too cheap to go out and buy them because I'm not that good to the point where the club is going to matter all that much.
Club matters.
I understand that club matters, but I don't think it would matter that much. Like I would go out and spend $1,000 on golf clubs and probably shoot about the same. So that's why I'm reluctant.
I understand that.
It's kind of like when people go to the pro shop or whatever and spend $18 on golf balls, man, for like a sleeve. No,
I never seen that. That's something I never do. I guess I'm cheap, but I always, first of all, I've not bought golf balls in 3-4 years.
Right.
I've told this story. I bought 1,600 or whatever it was golf balls from a guy up in Martinsville that I went there and he literally had them in 26 Kroger bags just filled of golf balls. I still have 2 duffel bags filled of golf balls that I've been using ever since then. I've still never, and I'm terrible. I'll hit a ball. I'm like, screw that ball. Like I've got plenty more.
Right.
Plenty more.
I mean, if I find one in the woods that's playable, I mean, I'm picking it up and I'm using it.
I'm not
it doesn't
partial
matter.
to a golf ball either.
I'm not either. I will. I mean, whether it's been played 100 rounds or whether it's fresh out of the store, it doesn't matter to me. It will eventually find the water, and it will be gone. And
just like Jim, he's also gone.
He's also gone. Yeah, a good visual of the golf ball situation there. So
John gets excited when I leave out. Don't worry.
It was a great segue because Dustin said he was gone and then you were gone.
Perfect. Is it time to be gone?
It can be if you want it to be.
No, absolutely not. Only if it needs to be. I was going to say, anything I touch on the phone right now, and it jacks me up.
Yeah.
If I try to look at something, you can't turn the camera off. So that's why. Just trying to pull something else up. Is it time to hit a break, John?
Might as well at this point. We're good. You can take one.
Oh, okay. When's Mike DeCourcy? Is he up next?
Yep.
Perfect. Mike DeCourcy joining us today. Looking forward to that from BTN as well as the Sporting News and Chronic Hoosier later on. But appreciate everybody joining us here today. Don't forget, brought to you by our good friends from BB's Market. Great place like BB's Market, where you can stop by and get the freshest in meats, bakery items, in-house made products, whatever you need. All part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wow Club. Make sure you go there, sign up, start earning wow rewards today. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Jim, the reason I jumped in is because Dustin looked surprised that you disappeared. I didn't want
Can you still hear? Like right now, can you hear me?
Yeah, right now you're in, but you completely dropped out of the stream a second ago is what happened.
Well, it's weird how what you can do and not do.
Are the power people finally coming today?
Well, now that it's not a freaking holiday, I can call their dumbasses.
Look, usually when Jim drops out and I'm talking, I can go on I can do some sort of ad lib, but I was completely done with my point and shocked that he dropped out.
That's why I was like, oh, I was
like, I don't really know how to go from here at this current moment. Like if I see it and I'm talking about something, then I can in my head ad lib a little bit, but I was completely done with my point.
It was great timing.
It really was. Jim's frozen.
He's not. It's because he's using his phone because
gotcha.
His phone's also how he's doing the show.
Gotcha. I'm up with it.
Anytime if I'm not on there, it does that. So I'm like, if I'm trying to look at other stuff.
Yeah, it's fine. As long as your audio still stays in, it's fine.
Then we're in good shape.
Once I pull it back up, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it's when I'm looking at other things.
Which is interesting. You'd think the camera would just keep rolling.
Scrolling.
Keep that phone scrolling. Do.
Man, Purdue made that's a statement last night with that win.
Purdue's officially the favorite of the Big Ten.
That was a pretty good win for them.
They still only have one loss. I mean, how can you deny it?
That's usually a game Purdue loses to. They've had a couple of those where they typically lose and they win. The Ohio State, Michigan State.
All right, 30 seconds. I'm sure Mike will be here shortly.
made fair, tying their roots in limestone with their love of Southern eateries. With quality, local, and organic food as their main focus, Southern Stone strives to always provide their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. It is January 17th. I hope everyone's making it through just fine. I know I am. Hey, if this is as bad as the winter weather's going to get, I can deal with it. I mean, they had that blast of Arctic air, which sucked. But if that's as bad as it's going to get, I'm cool with it, man.
You just jinxed it, right? Now you're going to get 6 feet of snow in a couple weeks.
I doubt that. But I'm sure February will bring something. But it hasn't been that bad, you know?
You know what February brings? Reese's Hearts.
What?
Reese's Hearts, like the candy. Like we go from the pumpkin to the tree, and now we got the Reese's Hearts.
Is that because of Valentine's Day?
Yeah. Why else would it be?
My birthday.
Oh, well, see, maybe there you go. Maybe they made them specially for your birthday.
I always thought that they did. Is that not the case?
No, I think it is the case. I think I was misremembering how it was, why they went into production.
I was going to say, I was shocked. That was going to be news to me.
Well, now
Shocking. We know. Chris Beard in Texas. How, there's a spot. There's something we haven't talked about as well. As Mike DeCourcy from Sporting News joins us, as well as Big Ten analyst. Mike, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm great, Jim. How are you?
Just fine, man. Looking at this Big Ten race and thinking that it's going to be a little bit open, but Purdue kind of keeps closing the door on people. 2 gigantic wins for them at Ohio State and now at Michigan State, both 1-point wins, but wins nonetheless. Very important wins as they keep kind of plodding along. They have looked like the favorite, but they're starting to play the favorite role right now.
Yeah, they're an outstanding basketball team, and they showed it again yesterday because Michigan State played very well. But Purdue has some things that are hard to deal with, and it starts with Zach Edey. He's worked so hard to make himself a terrific player, and I was watching that game down the stretch, and I thought to myself, in that situation, I don't know whether it helps, works, whatever, but I've got to dig on Zach Edey on that last possession. I don't think you can allow him to go one-on-one in that circumstance. I don't care what your rules are, but you have to dig there. And if he kicks it to Foster Lawyer, or I think it was Foster in the near corner.
Fletcher.
It was Fletcher. I know his folks, right? And now I'm mad at them because they could have had like a Foster and like a Joe, but no, they had to have it's killing me. If they were going to have 2 terrific basketball players for Suns, they should have thought about us, right?
Right.
We were going to have
now I'm going to be doing that same thing now.
I did it on Big Ten Network's air once, and I caught myself, and then so I swore I'd never do it again, and here I go. But anyway,
it's like the Teague brothers. You had 3 of the Teague brothers. It just like nonstop.
But one was Jeff and one was Marcus. It wasn't hard to keep. It wasn't that hard. It made it easy on everybody else. Anyway, I think it was Fletcher was in the near corner. I can't remember for sure. And Tyson Walker was guarding him. And I watched it, and I'm like, Ohio State, Zach kicked it out. So he's going to kick it out if it's there. But I think I'd rather take my chances on that than allowing Zach to go one-on-one. Ohio State tried the double. He kicked it to Fletcher. Fletcher made the three, and they still lost. So it doesn't mean. But I there's a 50% open shot or a 80% shot at the rim from a 7'4" guy with great skill. I think I'm going for the 50% shot.
And more importantly, they have the backup plan every time. It's the either or, and you're getting faced with a double dose both times.
Yeah, they don't have. I think that's exactly the strength of having a great coach like Matt Painter and terrific players to surround him with. You can do that. You can say, here is the two options. You're going to have to live with one of them. And that's what Michigan State chose differently than Ohio State. And each of them paid the price because Fletcher delivered in Columbus. And last night it was Zach Edey that got the basket at the rim. So I'm not saying that Tom chose wrong. I'm saying if I were choosing, I would bank on the idea that it's going to be harder for a freshman to make a three on the road than it is for Zach to score at the rim.
I mean, I think to me, I go back to a couple of those. I would like to get your opinion on this, Mike, because I've thought in the two games that they've played, and I know they were undermanned in the game on Friday, but I thought that Fred Hoiberg has scouted Purdue's offense better than probably anybody in the Big Ten outside of Rutgers. It seemed like they really pressured the guards, didn't let them drive, and didn't let Zach Edey get low post position. I mean, and then as you said, they basically dared Purdue to make threes to win those games. And if Purdue's hitting, then nobody's going to stop them. But that to me seems like the better strategy. Am I wrong to think that that's been one of the better scouts that he's done, even though I know it was like a 20-point game on Friday. They were obviously without Juwan. Why am I blanking on his name? They were without two of their guys, Sam Griesel. And but has that been was that one of the better scouting jobs you've seen? Is that kind of the blueprint to beat Purdue?
Well, I think they did a great job. The second part of that equation that you mentioned, not allowing Zach to get low post position. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do now. Mm-hmm. He's 7'4". He's got great strength in his legs. It's hard to keep him out of that. And also, when you're able to deny him low post, he is really effective from 12 to 14 feet because, again, he's an easy target for his teammates to pass to. They're able to find him easily, and he's able to see the court really well from his height, and so he can find a cutter. Remember, there's open space because they forced him up the lane. He can find a cutter. He can make that shot, and he has. And so everything that you do is going to have, against a team that's as complete as they are, it's going to have a price, but it's a question of which price you want to pay. And I think that, honestly, Michigan State did a great defensive job yesterday, not necessarily on Zach, who had great numbers, but in general. The rest of the Boilers weren't able to be very effective. The numbers, I think eventually Fletcher had a nice second half points wise, but from a standpoint of their typical production, most of the other Boilers were down. But I just thought, like I said, on that last play, I feel like it's especially, if you've got a 7-footer, and of course there aren't very many that do, but if you've got one, then maybe that's a little different. But if your center is a terrific 6'9", 6'10" guy like Sissoko, I'm not sure that that's enough. And in that case, it wasn't. And they forced Zach into a miss here or there. But in that situation where you have to get a stop, that does make it difficult.
And I think I've got the question here to get, I think, Mike fired up this morning. The last 49 seconds of the Purdue-Michigan State game took 21 minutes of real time. I mean, this has been a problem in the NBA. It's been a problem at times in college basketball. Do you have the solution to eliminate some of this stuff? Because it's for that long, and it wasn't like they were playing the foul game. It wasn't, teams were constantly fouling to try to extend the game. It was replay review and all that jazz just took forever.
Well, my obvious solution to that is no replay review.
Right.
I hate it. I just don't think, I don't understand why, if a basket with a minute left, like Zach Edey scored with seconds left, counts 2 points, and a layup in the first 30 seconds of the game counts 2 points, then why is the possession in the last 2 minutes worth more than the one at the beginning of the game? It's not logical. The competitive logic is not there. And I don't like things that in sports that aren't logical. Just as the circumstance where this play, a sideline out of bounds play, is reviewable in football, but pass interference or holding is not. To me, if you want to have a replay system, all plays should be reviewable. Why? Because it's logical. It's not logical to say this you can and this you can't. I'm really big into competitive logic, and the replay revolution, the replay era, has abandoned competitive logic, has set it to the side. And I'm not a big fan of that. There are rules in Monopoly for a reason. If you said, Park Place is worth more than Baltic Avenue for Mike to own it, but if Dustin owns it, it's worth that doesn't make any sense. Well, that's why games like Monopoly are still there 100 years later, because the competition never changes. In the NFL and in college basketball, we've now changed that. And so, and what's the price that we pay? Exactly what you said. I will tell you, I watch 90% of the basketball that I watch on DVR. The only games I don't watch on DVR are the ones in the studio when I'm at BTN, or like on Saturday afternoon, because I have a flight every week to Chicago to get there. And so, like, if I'm watching a Saturday afternoon game, I don't have time to catch up. I have to watch like Kentucky versus Tennessee on Saturday live. So that doesn't affect me as much as a consumer of college basketball, because for me it took 3 seconds. I just went zip, zip, zip. They're playing again. Then I do that because it allows me to watch more games. So so for me, that doesn't bother me. Like, it doesn't affect me, but I know it's bad for the consumer, because the consumer wants a game that's active and urgent and going. And we have bogged our games down with these replay reviews that often take many minutes. I think I timed one in a recent game that seemed to take a long time, so I used the timer on my DVR, and it was nearly 3 minutes of. And I, one of the things I said, I tweeted this last week. I said, I can't remember what game I was watching, but it was the most obvious out of bounds play you could ever see. Like the ball went off my hand. It was clear as day. Nobody, and it still took a minute and a half. And I said, at the end of my life, I should get back all the time referees wasted reviewing out of bounds plays that were obvious. And I said, I'd live another 3 years.
That is very true. And I don't understand too. This is another problem that I have. I feel like we get into this nitty gritty type of, if a guy goes up and blocks a shot, let's say, this is just an example. Let's say Trace Jackson Davis blocks a shot off of Brandon Newman. And then we get into whose fingertips were it off last night. Well, like, to me, going back, that would be Purdue basketball. Trace Jackson Davis made the play. When you get into the fingertips thing, that's where, to me, it takes 5 minutes. It bothers me to no end, because I don't think that's in the nature of the review.
Exactly. For 100 years, if I were holding the ball or dribbling it, and you slapped at it, for 100 years, that's been off you, because you slapped at it and you caused it to go out of bounds. Now, if you slapped it off my toes or my shin, like we've all known and we've all seen that for 100 years as well. It's pretty obvious, if you can catch that as a ref, and you should catch that as a ref, that's off me. But you slapped at it, and the fact that you slapped at it and it left my fingertip last.
Right.
Come on. For 100 years, that ball's been off you. And for the 38 minutes of that game.
Yes.
That ball's been off you.
Right.
So it's crazy that we do this.
I agree. I could not absolutely. It is just slowing down the game and taking away some of its fun. Getting back to the Big Ten as a whole, now I think the Big Ten is looking better top to bottom than I thought. Because you look at a team like Indiana, who is near the bottom, but they're not as bad as they appear. They just haven't been playing well. They play if they play like they did against Wisconsin, that's a team that's dangerous, that can probably win in maybe anywhere at any night. And there's 12 other teams that can possibly win anywhere any night. Minnesota, maybe not so much, but man, the rest of the Big Ten is starting to look like they're a tough out. I'm not seeing great teams minus maybe Purdue. Maybe Purdue is becoming a great team because they're winning these tight games in tough places. But the Big Ten as a whole is still looking pretty good to me from top to bottom, and I'm a little surprised. They've kind of come around, I guess I'd say.
Well, I mean, I think that from the preseason projections, yes, but I think that they covered a lot of the ground that you're talking about with their non-conference performance. I mean, there was that like late December walkabout or whatever with Michigan losing to Central Michigan and Iowa losing to Eastern Illinois that didn't help the league's rep. But for the most part, it's been a league full of teams that have had significant non-conference performance, non-conference success. Overall, you look at the net, the league is ranked second as a conference in the net, and they have the second best winning percentage in out-of-conference play. So that shows you, one, they're getting it done against everybody, and two, the teams they're getting it done against are not low level. They're not weak teams. You don't get a good net ranking unless you're beating quality opponents on the regular. It's not like it was last year or the year before. And I'll tell you, the difference is pretty stark in that what we have right now is one team in Purdue that's a 1 seed. And then and this is on my Fox bracket that will appear later today at CBB on Fox on all the social media platforms. You have one team that's a 1 seed in Purdue, and then no team. I think you have another team in Rutgers that's seeded 5, and then no one else that would be seeded higher than 7. So it's different than like 2021 when we had Ohio State, I think, was at 2 and Purdue was at 3. And so it's not quite to that level. Illinois was a 1 that year. Michigan, I think, was a 1 also. That it's not like that, but it's good. It's a very solid league. I think the Big 12 is having the 2021 Big 10 year. And it's really punishing particular members of that league. Texas Tech, no wins. West Virginia came in top 20 in the net, no wins in conference play still. Oak State, pretty competitive team, no 1 win in conference play over West Virginia, which doesn't have any. So that's the league that you kind of don't want to be in this year. I think that if you're a Big Ten team, though, right now what's interesting is that from about 2 to about 12, literally everybody can beat everybody.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that reflected in the standings. I think there's like Purdue is 6-1 now, and I think Rutgers is 5-2. And then everybody else is basically within a game of 500 except Minnesota. And that's a pretty balanced league. So it's hard to gain momentum. It's hard to feel like you're getting better. It's a really challenging environment for teams of the nature that exist in the Big Ten, which is all, they're 3 wins away from being really good, but you can't get those 3 wins when everybody else you play is like you.
Yep, we've got to take a break, but lots more coming up with Mike DeCourcy from the Big Ten Network and sporting news. Brought to you by our good friends from Go Team, a part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wild Club. Make sure you can reach out to GoTeamBites.com or go to BB's Market. Pick those up. For anyone on the go, whether it's you, your student athlete, whomever, great tasting protein, and it's a way to get through the day. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Golfers, here's the deal.
How about Mike's Monopoly knowledge? Just right off, just knew it right off the bat.
I'll tell you what, Monopoly is, you've got to be willing to sacrifice some time if you want to play Monopoly.
Yes.
Time and potentially relationships.
Because it's like the sucky thing about Monopoly is like you know who's going to win about halfway through the game, but it's still not over. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, now you know that, like John. Now you know why it translates so easily to life, because
That's true.
Oh man.
What a beautiful day it is.
I'll tell you what, like you said earlier, Jim, it is weird how we had like a week
telling you guys, you're
like a half a
jinxing
week of negative temperatures, and then it's been as mild as it can be ever since.
It's going to be -5 all of February now.
Don't complain. Yeah, don't complain. It'll be -5 all of February.
I'm not complaining. I'm just surprised.
you don't even bring it up. Just like roll with the flow. You know?
Exactly. Exactly.
Exactly. Just don't even act like it's June. Just forget about the word
God,
January.
if this was June, I'd be happy about that. I wouldn't have to buy a new air conditioner this spring.
There you go.
The sun is out.
It is. I it's like, wow, what is that? What is that thing? What is that ball up in the sky? Yeah, man, the Big Ten is looking good all of a sudden. It's like they've kind of rounded into shape. But that's basing Indiana off of one game of them coming back and looking good. They look good against Wisconsin.
One thing I said on Beyond the other night is that this is Wisconsin without Wall is the easiest team in the Big Ten to guard. Period.
Right.
Like that includes Nebraska and Minnesota. You put Wall back in there, it's a different team. But that's why you practice in. I would say you can get good habits, out of playing opposition that is not great.
Right.
And I think this is a terrific Wisconsin team at full strength, but
10 seconds.
at this stage they're not. So you can maybe build some habits that can work. They were struggling so much on defense.
Here we go, guys.
Feast, market, and seller today.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Tuesday, brought to you by our good friends from Remax Realty. If you're in the Indianapolis market looking for a home, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between you getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Appreciate Cheryl, big supporter of Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We appreciate her. With us right now, of course, Mike DeCourcy, the Hall of Famer from Big Ten Network, as well as Sporting News. Mike, looking at the Big Ten, man, it had been kind of a mess, really. You didn't know what Michigan direction they were going. Illinois was looking wonky. Indiana looking wonky. all of a sudden we've got a Rutgers team that's rising. It was like, what the hell is this? You've got a Penn State team that's rising. You're like, what the hell's going on? But then all of a sudden, Wisconsin came in to Bloomington, obviously shorthanded without Wall, who is their leader. Indiana looked really good. And yeah, they were shorthanded, but it was more how Indiana looked, because they had not looked that way. They had not done some of the things that they were doing in that game. And it just was should have been a confidence builder for them that they can take forward. But it's part of what makes this league so damn tough. Like I said, other than Minnesota, which I don't mean to count them out because they have won a game, but they got lucky with a bad call in that game. Other than that, though, I don't think there's a team that can't beat somebody that they're playing. And I don't know that I've said that before.
Well, I think in 2020, the year we didn't have a tournament, we were 12 deep in the Big Ten in NCAA tournament contenders.
Yeah.
As late as like the third week of February, and then Minnesota tailed off a little bit. But that was an unbelievable year. And I think Purdue that year, sort of maybe probably wouldn't have made it at the end, but we were looking at 10 selection week after Indiana beat Nebraska that night, the last Big Ten tournament game that season. That sort of locked it up for IU. And so we were looking at 10 that year, and that would have been only the second team ever to get double digits. So again, I think this is a good solid year for the conference. And it's a really good year in the sense that it wasn't expected to have a good season. And I guess if you judge it by the polls or whatever, people are going to look at the top 25, and I don't look at it, so I don't know, but I think there probably is only one team left in there now. With Purdue, and probably no one else ranked. Maybe Rutgers is getting there. I don't know.
Rutgers is 23.
Yeah, so that's good for them. But it's not, it's not a deep league in terms of high-end seeds, but it's a really competitive league, and it's a league that will get they'll get the most or near the most NCAA tournament bids this season, and people will complain again. Because they'll all be seeded, as I said before, a lot of them will be seeded in the second, in 8, 9 or below, and they'll probably fall out pretty quickly. And people say, "Well, look, they didn't earn these bids." Well, look, somebody's got to fill out the field, or we don't have games, And so, if you're put into a 12 seed or 11 seed, you're supposed to lose. So don't let that affect how you view this season for the Big Ten if they do that, because it's about having a good solid competition. And I don't know if we're going to have a great league champion race, but we're going to have a really interesting race for seeding in the Big Ten tournament and for tournament bids. Because I am giving away secrets. I took Ohio State out of my bracket for this week. Obviously, they're a team that thinks they should be in and wants to be in and should be in and all that, based on the way they played in November, December. That's interesting. Can they get back on the right track and make a run at a bid?
And that's a tough team, and that's a good team.
Yeah. I mean, Bryce Sensabaugh, one of the best freshmen in the country, but they've run into some. When I say chemistry issues, I don't mean necessarily that they're but like on court, the flow isn't there. It's not there. I mean, that Minnesota game, they had 5 assists in the whole game. 5 assists. Like that, the ball isn't moving the way it used to move. It's sticking now. They're making lesser decisions, but you can get yourself out of that. It happens all the time. And so getting themselves out of that is part of what makes the next 7 weeks fun. And they're not they're obviously not alone in that. Illinois right now, all good. But last Sunday on Beyond, our first episode, we're talking about, hey, what's wrong with Illinois?
Right.
That's what makes this league fun, is that you're one game away from what's wrong with them, and one game away from, oh man, they're winning it all.
Well, speaking of the Illini, that's the opponent for Indiana next up. That Indiana gets that challenge now, and on the road over in Champaign. So Indiana coming off of a game in which they looked good, played well. Now they have to take that onto the road, which is going to be a very, very important test for this team.
Yeah, really tough challenge too, because Illinois can be many things as a team. And one of their problems has been that they haven't always been able to know what the right thing to be at that particular time is. They can be a terrific deep shooting team. They've been that in games. They did that to UCLA, if I remember correctly. They can play in the low post with Dane Danger. That's a guy that can finish with either hand, has great physicality, hard to keep off the block, but they have games where they can't get the ball to him. They can be a downhill driving team with Darren Shannon. He's had terrific games. Matthew Meyer has games where he looks like a pro, and other games where you don't know, wait, is he here tonight? So that's one of the interesting things about this game is that you have to figure out what they're set up to do for that night, and then you have to figure out how to guard it. If I'm Illinois, my first thought is, with no race, I'm going inside. I'm building Dage in that game because it puts Trace in a position where he has to defend more than you want him to. He's got more responsibility even there than he ordinarily does because of that. He did a great job on Saturday helping out with Stephen Crowell and made Stephen Crowell, who came into that game with 2 20-point, like 122 and 118. So basically 2 20-point games in a row in Wall's absence. And he just disappeared. And that was the biggest difference in the game. But Danger's a totally different player. But he, again, super skilled and got all the tools, but is one who can be there and not be there at a particular time. And so I think it makes it a very interesting defensive challenge for the Hoosiers.
And one of the things, you just talked about having team chemistry. And one of the things that you pointed out when we talked a few weeks ago is part of the reason Indiana has struggled is because they haven't been at full strength. And we've talked at length about how coming into the season, Xavier Johnson was a big key for Indiana's success. Then you lose a veteran guy like Race Thompson. And we understand that Wisconsin was without Tyler Wall, but sometimes it also takes a little bit of time for that chemistry to gel, for those guys to get together, especially on the defensive side of the court. To me, what I saw from Indiana defensively, even though you mentioned Wisconsin might be one of the easier teams to defend, that's something that I'm wondering if that might be their aha moment, where
yes,
at times this season, they have not played the kind of defense we saw from them a season ago. So if they have that aha moment where, you know what, we may not be shooting the ball well, but if we defend the way we did against Wisconsin, we can beat anybody in this league, or at least be in the game with anybody in this league. I think that's the hope moving forward. I mean, do you see that same sort of outlook for Indiana?
Well, I think that's the key, and that's why that Illinois game is so interesting because, again, like I said, they propose so many different defensive challenges depending on the night. And so you have to have a great game plan, and you have to have the ability to take away multiple things from that team. Like I said, the downhill drives with Shannon, the low post game with Danger. You have to watch them on the perimeter. You have to be worried about Meyer. I think there are nights you can make Matthew Meyer not into it. Let's say you could take his verve away. I think you can do that to him if you really defend him well, and I think that's a key to them because when he's on, they're really, really hard to beat.
Yeah,
because he can do so many things as an offensive player. But he, when he was at Baylor like 2 years ago when they won the title, he was a big part of that because he came in, he gave them a huge punch. He has so many different ways that he can get the ball into his shot that he's hard to guard. But then last year, with that platform, and then all the great guards leave, and you got enough guards that they can get the ball to you, and so all of a sudden here comes this opportunity. It didn't really happen for him, and so you wonder, like, okay, how is he the kind of guy that's going to just chew glass to get through a game and be great? And so I still think you see that from him from time to time. But when he's on, I think he's one of the 6 or 7 best players in the Big Ten on his good days. Just so dangerous. So IU has to have a way to guard that, and they have to have a way to guard the low post, and they have to have a way to guard Shannon. And I think what you have to do is you have to isolate them. You have to make it hard for them to get into their actions. That's where the on-ball defense, and obviously if you have a guy like Xavier, it really helps. And can you get that from Jalen? I think that's not really his thing. He's big, long, he's agile, he gets in the passing lanes very well, he's alert, but he's not a bulldog on the defensive end. It's not his thing. So I'll be very curious to see what kind of defensive game plan they have for the Illini, because with your limited team, without Race to help out down low, you have 5 fewer fouls, and a lot less ability to defend. Race isn't just 5 extra fouls. He's a terrific defender, terrific defensive rebounder. But those 5 fouls you're losing are huge when you're going up against a team that has that low post presence.
Yeah, it's an opportunity for some people like Jordan Geronimo to grow quickly. Of course, it would have to be quickly, but in the last game, obviously, with a double-double, he's someone that they're hoping that they can count on, and maybe the confidence from that game brings him forward. But one of the things I've said is Indiana, to win, they have to have something from, whether it's Trey Galloway, Tamar Bates, or Jordan Geronimo. They have to have a third guy. It cannot be Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace Jackson-Davis. They're not going to beat every team. And rarely they're going to beat any team by themselves. We've seen them both have great games and Indiana lose. So they've got to have other people step up. And that's just there's just no other thing to go with that. Before I let you go, for Iowa, Fran McCaffrey, his stick has run its course for me. And I know that, and because we cover IU, people say, "Oh, Bob Knight," I don't care about that crap. To me, it is a stick. When you've got to have people holding you back and all this, I'm like, let him go. What's going to happen? Nothing. This is like the WWE. Nothing's going to happen. But to me, his stick has run its course. It's like he acts like he is going to kill somebody because he's so mad, which he's probably really not. I don't know what it is, but they're letting him get by with things. And when you actually call a technical on someone in a game and then rescind it, and I'm not saying that's why I don't care about who wins or who loses, but his shtick has run its course for me personally, and I don't understand why it continues in this day and age to be allowed. Although it can be comical at times, but there's times where it's not.
Well, I don't think we ever got a clarification about what happened with that technical foul.
Of course we did, and never going to.
I do think that was a situation where it probably should have been teched, or the tech should have stayed, or whatever happened. It should have been, because he was way over the midcourt line in the space of the IU assistant. So, Fran is in a lot of ways, he's continuing to do a great job at offensively.
Oh, absolutely.
Terrific job with those guys. And defensively, his game plans are improving. They're not going to stop you. I mean, they're not going to, maybe not even slow.
And that does surprise me. I would think that he would be a defensive hawk.
It's not who he is. It's not who he is.
At all.
But their game plans are getting better. They're changing defenses better than they ever have, and they're getting to the point where they don't make it hard for you to make baskets, but they make it hard for you to make plays.
Them.
They make it hard. Well, it's already hard for you to stop them, but they make it hard. Like they allowed Maryland to shoot like 48% on Sunday. Okay, we had that game on BTN. Maryland shot 48%. So they don't stop you, and they don't even necessarily slow you down. But what they do is they make you do things you don't want to do, A, in a lot of cases that's play fast, and B, they do not foul you. Their opponents are averaging 10 free throw attempts a game.
Wow, that's amazing.
And it really is. And somebody could say, well, that's because they don't guard anybody. But no, right. I mean that could be a flippant response. But but Maryland came in there wanting to win. Maryland didn't play badly, and they got baskets, but they couldn't get the shots that they wanted, and they couldn't get fouled. And being fouled is huge in basketball. And if you're not getting fouled, Wisconsin had always been under Bo, and it's carried over under Greg a good bit. Maybe not quite to the same degree, but under Bo Ryan, Wisconsin was always famous for not fouling, and there were coaches in basketball who would say, well, they don't get fouls called because they're famous for not fouling, so the refs assume they're not fouling. But Iowa's not fouling, and it's working for them. They don't give you free points. You have to earn everything you get, and I think that makes a huge difference.
I know we got to take a break, Jim, but I want to ask this question to Mike really quick because I've seen it all over Twitter the past couple days. Zach Edey, 10 fouls in 7 conference games. There are some people that are not happy about that. And watching some of those games,
he just has to stand upwards. My God, that's a problem.
I agree with you. Here's what I think. This is what I think. I've said this multiple times. Juwan Johnson, AJ Hammonds, Isaac Haas all walked, so Zach Edey could run, because I think Purdue has had enough big men in the past where they've gotten, those guys got what I would call ticky-tack fouls, or just fouls for being big. And now officials have become so used to having Purdue having a big man that they've almost adjusted the whistle. Like, I understand all he has to do is go straight up, but 10 fouls in 7 conference games at his size, whew, that's
one of the things that's interesting though, Dustin, is that one of the things that I noticed last year was in the NCAA tournament, when the crew that worked the Texas game called all the fouls that Texas committed on Zach, and they were many.
Yes. Like
they fouled out like 5 guys, and Zach shot 1 million free throws, and Purdue advances. And then here, and remember, Texas is always got big guys, right? So they had like 3 or 4 guys to throw at them, and they threw them all, and they all got fouled out. Okay, so then St. Peter's comes in, and this is not to excuse the performance, but St. Peter's comes in, and they got a bunch of guys my size hanging on his arms the whole game, and he can't play.
Right.
I mean, he can't play, and there are a lot of teams that defend him like that. So if he's not having fouls called on him, and there was one last night, where Sissoko put his arm in on a rebound, and he probably fouled Zach immediately, and then Zach swept him around, and he went down to the ground, and at that point he had fouled Mahdi. So they probably should have called the initial foul quickly, and then that wouldn't have happened. And then they should have called that foul because they let it happen, but they didn't call anything. That was not great. That was not ideal. But for the most part, for a guy his size, he's played now how many games? 17 games, and he has shot 91 free throws. So they're not really calling fouls on either side of that.
Right.
So,
that's true.
Kind of fair if you think about it.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't have a problem with it because I get sick and tired, and I'm talking about from the little league up, of having a foul called on somebody just because they're big.
Right.
You'd see somebody just run into a big guy and fall down, and foul. I'm like, what'd they do? But Mike, what's up next for you, my friend?
Yeah, we're going to be having the mid-season All-America team coming up this week at Sporting News. My bracket is released this afternoon.
Am I on the All-American team?
Are you?
Yes.
Are you? What are you? A point guard, a power forward, a shooting guard?
I
What are
would
you?
probably be a small forward.
Okay. All right. Well, you're not.
Yeah, I didn't think so, but I took a shot.
Yeah, so we'll have that. And one of the guys we've just been talking about, I think you're not going to be surprised to see his name on there. But we'll have that coming up this week. And we'll have a bunch of other college basketball coverage at Sporting News. And I will be on I'll be on FS1 Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays at 6 and 6:30 pregame show talking about my brackets.
And then Indiana and Illinois this week, a big challenge for the Hoosiers as they look for a big road win. And that would be one.
No question. And then Sunday nights, don't forget Big Ten basketball and beyond in our 12th season, talking Big Ten hoops and the national picture as well. So the time fluctuates based on our game schedule, but it's every Sunday night.
Make sure you're not to miss that. I try not to miss it at all. Big Ten and beyond. Keep up to date on what's going on in Big Ten basketball and much, much more with Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and the Big Ten Network. Mike, thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Thanks, gentlemen. Always a pleasure.
The great Mike DeCourcy joining us here on Indiana's Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday, brought to you by our good friends from Barber Pop Real Estate Services. For those of you down in the Louisville, Southern Indiana area, Floyd, Clark, Harrison, Scott County communities, they have served those areas for 3 decades. No one can get you in the home you want quicker, easier, or less expensive than Barber Pop Real Estate Services. Reach out to Barbara at barberpop.com or our friend Matt Lincoln, Matt at barberpop.com. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore Honda.
All right, this will be a short 5 to 10 minute segment before Mr. Chronic Hoosier joins us.
Oh boy.
Wow. TCU needs a new arena. They're only holding 6,700 people.
Well, they're a small school, though.
I don't care.
Duke.
I tell you what, I cannot
Everybody
watch.
everybody else in their league holds 10,000 or more.
I cannot watch, or I cannot be on Twitter during a Purdue basketball game.
Why?
I mean, because it is constant bitching from both sides about the officiating. Constant.
Well,
And I know
Indiana fans do the same thing.
I understand.
All fans do the same thing. They just
look.
Officiating sucks. First of all,
it does. I do agree, but it sucks all the way around.
And officiating is not. Officiating did not cost Indiana to lose to Iowa. That's not why they lost that game. Yes, that technical should have been called. And does it change? Sure, but so does turnovers and missed free throws. And
I just don't. I mean, here's the thing: the officiating is bad. I don't think it's that bad to where I need to constantly tweet about it. And
it's not. But that's the thing. Fans do not have a
filter.
They don't have a perspective other than theirs. It's like their child. It's like it's watching their kid play a sport. They're never going to see. They're going to see it one-sided.
Right.
They're going to see it one-sided, and I get that, but because of not seeing it that way anymore, being able to watch it and say, well, yeah, that call did suck, but guess what? 2 plays later, 3 plays, they turned the ball over 3 times in a row.
Right.
I said, what about that? They missed back-to-back free throws. What about that? There's a million things that.
Which I don't mind if people tweet about the officiating or comment on it or whatever, but it seems to me, and I have to be on Twitter for work and stuff, but it seems to me during those games in particular, I mean, it's every possession somebody's tweeting about the officiating.
Everybody does it. They all do it.
All right, here we go.
Nutritious
I wish
meal
I could
prep
see
that
comments.
we cook up.
You can't see them?
No, not during.
Oh.
I got to switch over.
Once a week. That's right. It's the fastest, simplest, and easiest way to avoid decision fatigue. Pick your plan and pick up at BB's Market with no extra charge. So leave the heavy lifting to us and enjoy healthy eating with stocked meals in your fridge. Order online today at thefreshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Tuesday. Just finished up with the great Mike DeCourcy, the Hall of Famer from the Sporting News and Big Ten analyst. Make sure you catch him, like I said, on the Big Ten each Sunday night, especially on the Big Ten and beyond, as they catch up everything and get you caught up on the week that was in the Big Ten, which is becoming more and more interesting. Like I said, this race is, if it wasn't for Purdue, this would be an incredible Big Ten race.
It still is.
You're right. It is, because it's not like Purdue is unbeatable. They've won 2 big time games at Ohio State and at Michigan State now.
They did.
By 1 point, but winning those games, period. I mean, those are gigantic wins, man. That's how you win a conference championship.
Those are big wins, but I think so. They're 6-1. They obviously lost to Rutgers, but they struggled against Nebraska on the road. 3-point win on the road there. They had a 2-point win over Ohio State, needed a last-second shot. They had a 1-point win, needed a late-game shot. So, yes, Purdue looks like the best team in the Big Ten, but they are far from unbeatable. I mean, you catch them on a bad shooting night, and they can go down in a hurry.
Well, you can say that about anybody, though.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying it's not like they're head and shoulders above everybody else. I don't think.
No, I think that. Well, I've said that. There are no great teams in the Big Ten. Then again, I don't know that there's great teams anywhere this season. I think there are some really good teams. Purdue is one of those really good teams. And I think the Big Ten has a bunch of teams right below that could be really good.
Yeah.
Indiana's one of those that at times have played really well, but they're just missing something. And again, Indiana's one of those teams. At 1-4, they were tied for last in the Big Ten, but I don't look at them as a team that is a last place team. They're too good, especially from what we saw against Wisconsin.
Well,
and if they decide to play like that, win or lose, they're going to be in games, because the defense was the name of the game in that game. And that made the difference. And if they play like that, they're going to be in games, period.
Right. I mean, this is a critical 2-game stretch. I would even throw a 3-game stretch in there, because you've got at Illinois, then you come home against Michigan State, and then you go on the road against Minnesota. So, and we've talked about Minnesota is right now the worst team in the Big Ten. They don't have a lot of firepower. That should be a game Indiana wins.
So give me that schedule again. I don't have the ability.
At Illinois on Thursday, then at home against Michigan State on Sunday, then you travel on Wednesday to Minnesota.
That's a tough. That's two out of 3 tough games, man. At Illinois is really hard.
Yep.
But you know what? It's a game Indiana can win. That's not unwinnable. You've got Michigan State at home. That is another tough game that, you know what? I think that's a 50-50 game.
I think it should be. Yeah, I think so too. Because you
I
get
think
it at
Indiana
home.
can win 2 out of 3 of these games. They can. Do they? I don't know.
I think they need to. Would you agree that they need to?
Absolutely. You cannot lose 2 out of these 3, especially with you got at Minnesota. Yeah, even though you're at Minnesota, even though 2 of these games are on the road, you still have to win 2 of these. And Minnesota is one of those games. It's a must win. You cannot lose to that team. And man, it's got to maintain home court advantage. You got to beat Michigan State, but who knows? What the hell if they beat Illinois and then win at home against Michigan State and win all 3 of those games? That changes Indiana's fortunes, and it's not that they're not capable of this. I believe that they are. If they play like they did in their last outing. They played with fire, and that's what has been the complaint. That's what's been I've talked about and I don't want to say complained about, but just mentioned and pointed out because that's been the case.
And just real quick, it just shows how razor thin the margin of error is, because if they win 2 of those 3, they are then 4-5 in the Big Ten, and you're saying, wow, they went from 1-4, they've won 4 of their last 5 games. They go 2-3, they're 3-6. And you're wondering if they're a tournament team. So this is a razor thin margin for error, and that's why I think it's important. Obviously, ideally, you want them to win all 3, but I think you've got to have 2 out of the 3 of these.
I don't disagree, like I said, and that's a difficult. It's a difficult challenge because that means you have to win at Illinois and you have to beat Michigan State,
right?
Who Michigan State is, without question, to me right now, the second best team in the Big Ten. They're playing very, very well. They lost a tight one at home to Purdue last night, but we'll see. Illinois is not. They were having troubles. They've been playing better here of late. Yeah. This should be a good game, and Indiana needs continued production from Jordan Geronimo. And hopefully he gets the confidence from his last outing that he can play like this and will play like this. But they also need Malik Renew to start playing better. They need Trey Galloway to start looking to score a little bit more. And they've got to get some kind of consistency from Tamar Bates. I know he's still kind of young, but his game, he's reminding me too much of Troy Williams right now from, I don't know, 6-7 years back, real high flying wing that could be amazing, but yet pretty inconsistent. Spent some time in the NBA, but he's got to get consistency offensively because Jordan Geronimo's a guy. He can shoot the 3 or he can dunk it on you. But he doesn't. He's not a guy that really gets to the rim. If he could add that to his game, the dude would be badass. But they've got to add. Someone has to have an offensive game. They've got to, or a combination of the 3. And if you mention, notice I didn't even mention Miller Kopp because he just doesn't shoot the ball. I know he can shoot 100% from 3, but if you're attempting 2 shots and they're all coming to the end of the game when the game's in hand, it doesn't really matter.
I can't wait to watch on Thursday and focus on him and what they're doing because that's a great point. I can't wait to see. We're gonna have some discussion on Friday, I'm sure.
Great. Well, absolutely. But it's going to be interesting to see what Indiana can do with this. They need this win. For confidence in their season going forward. If they really want to have a successful season, this is a game they need to win. They need to win games like this. Are they going to win every road game? No, they're not, and I don't expect them to. It's a huge ask. But is this an easy one? No. Is this one that I would say that they should win? No, because I guarantee you they're an underdog. I would bet you they're a 2 to 3 point underdog. I haven't even pulled the spread up. But if you did, I'm sure that's what the case is. So it's not a game they're supposed to win, but it's a game that's close enough to me that I think they need to win to show that, hey, all right, we're on the come. This is a little bit better than what we've been showing.
Right. No, I agree, and I think going into this season, these are the games you were expected to win. Not all of them, as you said, because you're not going to go through the Big Ten undefeated. But you need to win some of these games to live up to the potential that was set out earlier this year. So that's why I say you'd like to see them get a road win against Illinois, get a road win against Minnesota, but if you can beat Michigan State at home, I agree with you. I don't think it's out of the question. But they've got to play defense the way they did against Wisconsin. Otherwise, I don't know how much of a shot they have.
You have to play defense like that the rest of the year. It looks like it's time to take a break, according to the boss, which means Chronic Hoosiers coming up next, and I'm looking forward to that. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, of course, brought to you by our good friends from Endeavor Hospitality and the Wow Club. Don't forget to make sure to go there and sign up. Great places like Metalworks Brewing, located right off the square in Bloomington, off of 6th Street, catty corner to Capello Restaurant, where you can also find Metalworks Brewing beer at all locations like Southern Stone, etc. But they love their enjoy of craft metalwork brewing as well as metal art. So stop in and have one. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Chronic Hoosier joins us after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home,
man, you have no idea how much it sucks to do this with the phone and not having access to information.
I can imagine.
What happened to your access to information?
Well,
I'll be right back, guys.
Oh boy, my internet was inadvertently turned off last Friday, and because of the holiday, they took off 5 days.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? So I've been without internet service since last week.
That sucks.
Although I'm paying for service someplace else. And I was like, so this place has internet service that I'm paying for, but I don't. They're like, yes. I'm like, that makes sense.
Who's your provider?
Of course, it's Smithville.
Oh, yes.
Thought about going to Infinity. Who are you with?
Well, for the time being, I'm on Infinity. But after living, decade and a half next to the largest fiber optic cable in the state of Indiana that runs underneath College Mall Avenue, 2 blocks from my house, I am hopefully on the cusp of just now getting fiber.
Is that Smithville?
No, I forget who the company is. The city awarded a $60 million bid to get a high speed throughout town.
Really? I'm going to have to look into that.
They were just digging up my front yard about a month ago, putting the box in.
How was Infinity?
They can eat all my ass.
Damn it.
I switched to streaming only about 4 or 5 years ago. And, I went from a $350 a month package to I just needed internet. I bought my own router. I've got a mesh system now so that I've got fast internet everywhere. And we made the switch off of their equipment the month that COVID started. And it was a complete shit show. They refused to support third-party routers. I was getting throttled. I had to install a bunch of software to track my uptime, my connectivity, and my speeds, and finally gave them a data log of like 200 pages to show how bad they suck. And I finally just went back to their equipment and just for internet only, and I'm paying $100 a month for a fraction of the speed that I'm going to get for half the price on fiber.
Updated menu, new brews, and will be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste with Dr. Hops' Brewing, Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Coming to you here on this Tuesday, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda, of course. Just go to AndyMooreHonda.com for all the best in new and used vehicles. I'm sure you can get a great deal on some 2022s right now. But make sure you always go there. Fueled by or powered by Andy Moore Honda. Joined now by the great Ronnie Hoosier. How are you, sir?
I'm doing excellent. Thanks for having me back, guys.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. Dustin Shooty with us as always as well. We were just finished up with Mike DeCourcy and was talking about basically how the Big Ten has gone from looking not good to really kind of deep, not deep with great teams because they only have, I think, 2 teams in the top 25 right now. But I don't know that there's a team that can't beat somebody all the way down to Minnesota. And that means that's 13 out of 14 teams. Maryland is kind of on the borderline there, so maybe 12. But, man, this league is 12 deep of solid teams because if Indiana's at the bottom of that and Illinois is at the bottom of that, I know that they're better than that. So this league has gotten a lot better than I thought that they were and were going to be, which makes it difficult for teams like Indiana because their next trip is up to Illinois. And I think that they need to win. We were just talking about the next 3 games the Hoosiers have at Illinois, at home against Michigan State, and then on the road at Minnesota. I think they need to win 2 out of those 3 games, even though that's a tough ask because one of those is at Illinois.
Yeah, no doubt. And this is a situation that Indiana created for themselves when they proceeded to drop 4 out of their first 5 Big Ten games. Unfortunately, signs of life from the IU defense against Wisconsin. It's always going to be a slog against that style of basketball. But it was probably in my estimation, it was their best defensive performance of the year. Which is going to, as you saw, for what was not necessarily the prettiest offensive output, puts them in a position to win the game and win they did pretty handily. They've got to find a way to take that on the road now. They've got to find a way to replicate that, honestly, throughout the remainder of this month if they want to position themselves for a decent tournament seed, not to mention a bid, but also to regain a little bit of the reputability that was lost over the course of December and some of the stumbles they had. But as we talked about last week, this stretch is absolutely crucial for setting the table for what's going to be an absolute gauntlet come February. And I think it would be disappointing to drop the next 2 or 2 out of the next 3 because as we've discussed before, the degree of difficulty gets so much tougher. The hill gets a whole lot steeper once February starts with really no reprieve. So hopefully Indiana can take some key learnings from what that defensive intensity can deliver them. And hopefully they can package that up and take it on the road and go remind Mr. Chester Frazier exactly what happens when the Hoosiers come to Spaceship Assembly Hall, as he's tweeting about a game 15 years ago this last night.
That Indiana won, which was bizarre to me. But whatever, teach their own. Don't let me yuck anybody's yum here. So one of the things that you just brought up and we just got done talking about is it kind of speaks to the margin of error and how thin it is for Indiana right now, because if they win 2 out of the next 3, they go to 4-5. And after starting the Big Ten season with a 1-4 record, you're feeling pretty good heading into, like you said, a much more difficult schedule. You lose 2 out of those 3 and you're 3-6, and you're wondering about your tournament resume at that point. So it's, to me, this might be the most pivotal stretch. I don't want to call them must-win games just yet, but I feel like this is a pivotal stretch for Indiana the rest of the season.
No, you very much have the feeling right now, even though Indiana's got some good wins on their resume, I don't know that they are squarely a bubble team at this point. I think most bracketologists have them pretty safe from the bubble, but recognizing what those strings of losses can do once you start stacking them up, once you start putting those into a pattern over the course of the season. And that's something that this team has struggled with in the past. It's something that they've already demonstrated they're capable of doing this year. And you cannot allow that to repeat. You've got to find a way to arrest a slide before a 1 game becomes a 2, becomes a 3, becomes a 4 game losing streak, because that's absolutely how you're going to sink your tournament chances. And for a team that had so much promise to start, obviously the injuries play a big factor into how Indiana got to where they are right now. I don't want to dismiss any of that. I think it's unrealistic for folks to bemoan the team's current position without, acknowledging the reality of losing 2 out of your 5 starters, 2 senior leaders. The thing for me that stood out was, how well Trace was able to lead, particularly on the defensive end. I thought he was far more aggressive than what we've seen. But the sudden maturation of Jalen Hood-Schifino and how critically important that's going to be, that IU's got a cool head in the backcourt that can run the stuff and set the tone for Mike Woodson. And that's just going to become even more paramount as you start going on the road, as you start playing. That Michigan State Purdue game last night was just an absolute, I guess yesterday, not last night, was a great matchup, but just showed, how incredibly difficult it is to win in any gym in this league on any given night. Anybody can take you to the cleaners if you're not watching, and you've even got to watch the Minnesotas. I think a lot of teams smell there's blood in the water when Indiana is on the schedule, and whether or not they look like they're worth anything, they're going to come for Indiana because they sense weakness. That's just what Indiana's record brings about from opponents. They feel a sense of opportunity. So Indiana's going to have to be highly cautious and highly aggressive, but also highly focused. And they're going to have to start stacking some W's together. I don't know that there's really going to be a realistic shot at the Big Ten title this year, seeing as the hole they've dug themselves. But you certainly want to play for seed line, and you absolutely have to play for that bid come Selection Sunday.
Yeah, I don't see any shot at the Big Ten title, but that's irrelevant. There are bigger things to achieve, and of course, what you can do in the NCAA tournament, and don't forget the Big Ten tournament. But this team is one that it's had to have been forced to change gears. No doubt. The injuries have played havoc with this team. I mean, you lose your best on-ball defender, and it's going to affect them. Anyone would be crazy to say otherwise. You lose a Race Thompson, it's going to affect you. I don't care who you are, because guys like Jordan Geronimo just were not prepared to just step right in. And Malik Renew was not prepared just to step right in. Now, after last game for Jordan Geronimo, hopefully that gives him the confidence to show him that he can be that player, and they need that player. I've said it over and over here with other people, whether it's Jordan Geronimo, it's Trey Galloway, or Tamar Bates, one of those guys has to step up every game for this team to win. It cannot win with just Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trey Jackson-Davis having good games. Someone else is going to have good offensive games, or a combination of those guys for Indiana to win, and especially when you go on the road. I think Jordan Geronimo is probably the most likely of those three, because he's shown that he can do it, and he just needs the confidence, I think, to know that he can play like that game in, game out in this league.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, it was absolutely awesome to see Geronimo really find a groove and find a way to stay on the floor and continue to make contributions. But I think what's paramount for these guys, obviously, you're going to lean heaviest on your big horses and Trace and on Hood-Schifino, but the imperative nature of having everybody that's getting minutes find ways to contribute. Geronimo doesn't necessarily have to have a double-double every game. But, for a guy that's currently averaging a little less than 6 points on the season, you got to be able to find a way to get to your averages. Trey Galloway, He doesn't necessarily always need to get double figures, but he's averaging almost 7 points a game. You don't want to see them dipping below those averages because it puts more onus on everybody else to pick up that slack. I'm probably most focused on Miller Kopp finding a way back into making pretty significant contributions, because for the better part of the season, he's been one of IU's most reliable scorers. The same thing can be said for Tamar Bates, especially in Xavier Johnson's absence. All those guys that are getting minutes have got to find a way to play up to or above their averages, because there's going to be games. Fortunately against Wisconsin, Trace didn't have that dominant post. He wasn't getting a lot of really effective traps, and he was able to work. That's not going to be the case for the majority of the remainder of the Big Ten season. They're going to throw the kitchen sink at Trace and make everybody else beat them. So these guys have got to find a way when their number's called to go out there and make contributions. And it's not always in scoring. Defensively, I think as we saw it, that's going to be it for Indiana. Indiana is not a team that's really built right now to get into a shooting match with a high-powered offense. Not that they can't score, but that's just not this team's path to victory on most nights. So you got to do it defensively, but you got to, all the effort plays, whether it be rebounding, boxing out, the little stuff, the intangibles, screening, cutting. This team has to do a lot of little things at a better level in order to give them a greater chance going forward, I think, especially with the diminished capacity.
And defense stands at the top of that, Dustin.
Well, and that's what I was going to bring up. Chronic, you said that we got to see Indiana travel a little bit better, and that's the one thing. It's the old coaching cliche, like defense travels. You can always control your effort on that end of the floor, but at times it's felt like Indiana really hasn't been that good defensively on the road. So I'm interested. I think one of the intriguing aspects of this game on Thursday is, did they find something defensively against Wisconsin? Can that serve as that watershed moment where finally they say, you know what, maybe we're not shooting the ball that great, but if we play defense the way we did against Wisconsin, we can hang with anybody in the Big Ten. We can kind of control our own destiny here. So that to me is going to be very interesting, because I think part of it is I think that they got away a little bit from what they were so successful with last season. And then I think part of it is, as you talked about, when you lose 2 of your 5 starters and you have to change the rotations, you got a new starting 5. It takes a few games at least to find that chemistry for those guys to gel. So I'm really interested. Did they find something in that Wisconsin game that they can then take on to Illinois and maybe manufacture some success on the defensive end?
Yeah, and I'd be a little cautious of reading too much into the defensive effort against Wisconsin, because I thought the effort was there. Don't get me wrong. I'd probably better put the reading too much into the outcome. Wisconsin is actually one of the conference's least effective offenses. Sure. And they just don't have the firepower. They don't have the athleticism that Indiana's going to see against most opponents. But for me, it was the engagement. It was the connectedness of the defense. It was very clear that they came in sharp, focused, and hungry to get after it on that end of the ball. And, I really loathe doing this because I think it's absurd that you for a lot of fans, it's difficult to praise the Indiana women's team without taking a dump on the men's team. But after watching the Maryland we just played, seeing how well the women have been able to absorb the injuries, the absences that they've been faced with for a team that runs a much, much tighter rotation than what the men do, and the way that they've been able to keep things together without really losing their identity in the process, without having to remake themselves. I think that was absolutely imperative to them being able to sustain the winning that they had during both Grace Berger's absence as well as Kendra Brown's. So if the men can figure that out, and it's really the guys coming off the bench, it's the guys that are being asked to step into the starting roles, that next man up philosophy, I know it's cliche as all get out, but it really has to be Indiana's mindset going forward, because make no mistake, you're going to see games where Trace gets frustrated and the output's just not there, where Fino shows more of his freshman side, where the whistles are going to get really, really disproportionate and really, really ridiculous. Not like we're not already accustomed to that, but that's just what happens in the Big Ten, especially when you go on the road. That's going to happen. How do you respond? That's the one thing that you control in every situation. It's how do you respond to that adversity, and it's going to take a lot of maturity, and I think it's going to take the young guys, maturing and kind of getting that thicker skin and that toughness when they go in some of these hostile environments and they face some difficult situations if they expect to pull some wins out here.
Yeah, absolutely, and they have to do that to not only stay in, to keep the season afloat, to keep their NCAA aspirations high, because there's a lot of games left, and they're all going to be tough. Like I said, there's just not a game in the Big Ten, and I know that sounds like cliche. It's not. Gee whiz, you look down through there, and teams have just gotten better. Even though Purdue has only one loss. That's a little surprising to me, but they came away with some great wins at Ohio State and at Michigan State last night. But this is a league that I truly believe is 13 deep of teams that I should say 12 deep of teams that can win on any given night. And that includes Rutgers and Penn State. Maybe 11. I forgot about Nebraska, but they're as deep as any league out there, and it's something that Indiana's going to have to overcome because they're going to face it every night. But I think that they're good enough to. And the game against Wisconsin, they caught them at a time without Wall, which was good, but it also was an opportunity for them. They have got to get just more confident. That's a team that just doesn't. At times, I think that they're overconfident, and then they realize that confidence is a false bravado, and then it takes them too far the other way. The game against Wisconsin should have been a great coming out party for Jordan Geronimo, because he looked very good and very confident in that game, and that's how he has to play.
No, and we talk about confidence, we talked about toughness, and I continue to beat on this drum. Sometimes it's just doing the little things well. It's not doing the dumb things when you're prone to doing dumb things. It's a million little things that are representative of focus, intensity, but also preparation. And we saw some of that. I thought we saw a good glimpse at what that can look like against Wisconsin, having seen several games where, it just wasn't there and the absence was quite glaring. So I think at this point, this is a team that has seen what it takes to win. They've seen how fragile success can be. And now we get to see what their key takeaways are and how they can apply those lessons going forward. Because as we've mentioned, it's not going to be easy for the remainder of the season. Every single night they go out there, there's both opportunity to win as well as a chance to disappoint. So we'll see how it goes. I don't expect them all to go Indiana's way, but more than anything, show me a continuation of that effort, of that intensity, of that focused preparation that we saw against Wisconsin, and I think they're going to end up winning a whole lot more than they lose going forward.
Absolutely. It's the offense and the defense have to be there night in and night out. And that's something that they're more than capable of doing. And hopefully they'll get that started and kicked off on the road against Illinois, which is a tough place. But you know what? You got to play them as they're laid out.
No, absolutely. And you know what? You talk about confidence builders. There is nothing that can get a team believing in itself quite like going on the road and stealing one in an opponent's gym. And of all the gyms for Indiana to win one in, Spaceship Assembly Hall is high atop the list of those that give great dividends down the road. As Chester Frazier was kind enough to remind us all.
Those, if you've not been to, as Chronic affectionately calls a spaceship, because it looks like a freaking spaceship sitting out in the field. They have around their court, they have recliner chairs, and I'm like going, how the hell are people supposed to get into games sitting in this recliner? I just never forgot that when the last time I was there. Purdue has some of those as well, but
It's such a weird place. It is. It's a cornfield that smells like hog manure, and yet all the kids there think they're a bunch of bougie Illinois suburb kids that are just in some extension of their hometown. So it's always been a very, very strange place. It's always been a very hostile place to Indiana, at least as long as I've been alive. But dang, it feels good when you walk out of there with a W.
Yeah, I would call a rivalry unrivaled. It's like the unofficial rivalry. It was good, really good there for a while, especially when Bruce Bember was there complaining about everything nonstop. But always been kind of an under the radar rivalry with Illinois.
Yeah, I go back in the late 70s, early 80s. It was fierce. It was fierce every time they played, and it's had its ebbs and its flows over the years. And we certainly saw, it kind of came to a fever pitch with the Eric Gordon decommitment and all that. But for all the arrows that get slung at Indiana fans for living in the past, I'm just over here chuckling that Illinois is still bringing that up all these years later, especially since they had a hell of a run, probably the best run in program history, right before that matchup. So, I do think the Big Ten is better when Illinois and Indiana are both good and competitive. And I certainly love hate coming from all sides of the border. So good to see that back and flowing and alive again.
The Ludu, that's right. Hey, Chronic, thanks a lot, brother. Appreciate you. Look forward to talking to you again next week after Indiana will have been on the road. Not only that, and they will have had a home game against Michigan
We get
State.
a Sparty party this weekend.
There you go. Big time games for Indiana coming up before we talk to Chronic again, brother. Have a great weekend.
We'll catch you next week, and everybody's free to bring me back something from the Beef House if you all stop over there on your way to the spaceship. It's a perfect tip time for a good dinner there before you head over to Champaign-Urbana.
It is a classic tradition. Chronic Hoosier joining us here on Indiana Sports Speed Radio. Appreciate you joining. Brought to us by Andy Moore Honda. Let me just number one Honda dealer. Make sure you go to andymoorehonda.com for the best in new and used vehicles. I'm sure you can get an incredible deal on a 2022 right now. Let's see. We've got to take a break and finish it out. When we come back, we'll have Shooty shout-outs back here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
I just made that up.
I like it. Big fan.
Now he's got to come up with his own segment here in about 3 minutes.
Shooty shout-outs.
That's a new segment I just created from now on.
All right. What? Here we go. Shooty shout-outs. I like this idea.
It is a good idea.
I got to think of something to shout out, though.
And it could be anything good.
Oh boy!
A team that has sucked and done well. A person that has done something well.
A person who sucks.
It could be me.
There we go.
Me. I'm kidding. That was a joke.
Let's see. Oh boy, this is on the spot. I like the potential of this though. Shooty shout
about that?
Right on the spot.
It's all right. I figured with 10 minutes left, we can BS our way through it.
We can. Oh man.
You have no idea how glad how happy I'm going to be to have internet tomorrow. If I don't, I'm going to throttle someone.
Set up from
and after the show, we need to discuss some WJOB matters before you get off.
Okay.
Because I'm going to call those guys today and let them know what we're going to do.
I need a JOB for you to be with me. WJOB. Hey, people, for those of you listening that are from the region or Chicago, because I know Chicago is our number 3 YouTube market.
How about that?
So all of you guys that are listening on YouTube, which continue to do so, of course, but you'll be able to catch us on WJOB up there in the region, Chicago. I think it's 1340 a.m. and I forget I think it's 104.7 FM.
Do they call it The Job?
I don't know. The voice of the region, which is funny because if it was the voice of region, That would be funny.
Oh, that's brilliant. The voice of region.
I want to call it the voice of region. They call it the voice of the region. I would have called it the voice of region.
That's so good.
Wouldn't that be funny? Would that not be great? Oh my God! How do they not do that?
Good question.
So we're going to be the voice of. So we will be the voice of region on the region.
That's right. All right, here we go.
Quality, local, and organic food is their main focus. Southern Stone strives to always provide their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Hope everybody's doing well. Shout out to our peeps down on the REF, WREF 97.7, ESPN. Always the right call down in Evansville, WBRO 89.1 down in Marengo, and soon to be WJOB 1340 AM, 104.7 FM up in the region, the voice of the region. We will be the voice of region up there. That is that's the station that carries all the IU games. So we'll be able to provide you guys with all the additional content you could want or need. Looking forward to that. Thanks a lot. And like I said before, for those of you listening in different areas, if you're in an area that you think we should be on a station where you live, let them know and let us know. I'll reach out to them. Hope everything's going well. Indiana taking on Michigan, or rather, getting ahead of myself, Illinois on Thursday on the road. Indiana's schedule has been really weird this year. They have one weekend road game.
Yeah.
In the Big Ten this season, well, at least since the Big Ten got started again. That first part doesn't count. The rest are all during the week. But now the bad thing is they've got this Thursday game, and then I'm assuming that's going to come back with a Sunday game since it's so late in Thursday. But still, you go from Saturday. So you get 5 days, and you get 3. It's like a weird.
Yeah. I wish that there was a little bit more consistent. I think that the Big Ten generally does a pretty good job in terms of how they schedule those days off, at least from a consistency standpoint. But I remember it would be nice if you consistently got Wednesday, or whatever it turns out, Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, however that works out. I don't know. But obviously you can't do that with 14 teams. But it is unusual for Indiana to get so many weekend home games. But those are the games you got to take advantage of.
I'm not. Yeah, it's not exactly something to complain about. But
no.
If you're traveling for work to the it does stink for all those travel games to be during the week. It's easier to travel on the weekend, but it is
positives
what it is.
Negatives. Always positives and negatives.
How about a Shooty shout out, man? I'm putting him on the spot. I'll be honest with you. I just came up with that idea. Just thought of that. So
I'm going to start with an easy one because I feel like this needs to be said. How about we give a Shooty shout out to the Indiana women's basketball team and Indiana fans for filling up Assembly Hall, more than 10,000 in attendance for that last game. That was awesome.
Largest regular season attended game in Indiana women's basketball history, largest regular season in Indiana basketball history, short of only by a couple of hundred in the 2018 NIT championship that they won in Assembly Hall.
Yes.
So to get that close in a regular season game, who did they play, by the way?
Who did they play in that game?
Yeah. Yes. This game, not back in 18. The other day.
Yeah, they played Wisconsin, right?
Okay.
Yeah, they swept with the men and women swept Wisconsin this weekend.
Well, the thing that amazed me though is they played Maryland just before that, and that was a top 10 matchup. And I thought that might get it, but the fact that they beat Maryland, I guess, really prompted more fans to come out. And who knows? They've got a lot of games left and a lot of big games. I don't have the ability right now to pull their schedule up.
Well, they've got two straight road games. They play Illinois and Michigan, and then they're back home against Ohio State, Rutgers, and then I'll tell you they got
When does Iowa come to town?
Iowa comes to town on February 9th, and that currently is Indiana is the 6th ranked team, and Iowa's number 10. Sorry, and I don't think the one thing. Oh no, those are both going to be huge games. But on Thursday, January 26th, Indiana hosts Ohio State, which is currently undefeated in the Big Ten and number 2 in the country. So those are a couple huge games, and you'd love to see. Let's see him. Let's see him get that attendance higher.
The Big Ten has become the toughest women's basketball league in the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the toughest volleyball league in the country. How about wrestling? You know what? I failed to mention, and I meant to. Here's a Shooty shout out for Angel Escobedo, the head coach of Indiana Wrestling. Did you know that Indiana Wrestling is ranked in the top 20?
I did not know that, but I do remember. Look, I remember going to state finals.
Let me repeat that. Indiana Wrestling is ranked in the top 20.
I remember going to state finals when I was in junior high and high school, and Angel Escobedo was, one of the most dominant lightweight wrestlers I remember seeing.
Oh, wow. You saw him wrestle?
Yeah. Not in college, but at during the high school state championships, I went to a couple of those with some friends. Some of my friends made it to the state championships, but that guy.
You know where he's from?
I don't recall.
Region.
Was he from Crown Point?
He's from the region.
Well, I'm trying to remember what school. Crown Point stood out to me, but I don't know.
Angel's been on with us a long time ago, and wrestling is not something we would normally cover here. But just because of what he has done, he got to Indiana Wrestling. Indiana Wrestling. It was a bottom feeder in the Big Ten, which the Big Ten obviously probably the toughest wrestling conference in the country. Iowa, Penn State. Michigan, Ohio State. Think of these big teams, and not that they're the only ones, but very, very tough. And that's an incredible job to take and go from basically nothing to now they've beaten 3 ranked opponents this year that I'm aware of. So I'm going to have to get Angel on the program again. It's been quite a while, but you know what? He deserves it. Cool dude. Super cool dude. And I understand from a coach, man, he's a guy that you want to play for. He's just got fire and spirit. So here's a Shooty shout out to Angel Escobedo and IU Wrestling.
Yeah, that's awesome. I did not realize, I got to be honest, full transparency, did not realize he was a head coach, but I immediately knew who you were talking about when you mentioned that name. That's pretty wild that he's done such good things. But you're right, the Big Ten is a great wrestling conference. Now I got to try to think of more Shooty shout-outs. The Pacers lost yesterday, but TJ McConnell had 26 points in the first half, didn't miss a shot, 4 for 4 from three-point range. That's a Shooty shout-out right there.
You know what? But this will give you practice. Now you can, going forward, you can have a couple ready each day or whenever we are able to do this. But, yeah, don't forget big dates. Thursday, January 26th and February 9th, Indiana hosts number 2 Ohio State on January 26th, undefeated, and number whatever they are, Iowa. I think they're 9th or something, but on February 9th, doesn't matter. They have Caitlin Clark. And if you're going to win the Big Ten, you've got to go through Iowa. You've got to beat Caitlin Clark. And
well, it looks like Ohio State right now.
Ohio State, man. Wow. They kind of come out of nowhere. But
yeah. I got to give one more Shooty shout out. It was my brother's 31st birthday over the weekend. So he gets
congratulations to brother.
Shout out.
What's his name?
Andrew,
happy birthday, brother. We appreciate you just like we appreciate everybody on the program today. Mike DeCourcy, of course, from the Big Ten Network and Sporting News, Chronic Hoosier as well. Most importantly, big thanks to you guys, man. Without you, we have no reason to be here. Dustin Shooty from Outsider.com and John, the producer, keeping us between the white lines, trying to keep everything going and having fun. We're back tomorrow to do this again with, of course, an all-star lineup of Bob Kravitz, Kyle Neddenrip, and Rick Bozich. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.